All right. This is part 2 of the Nat Turner series. Go back and watch part 1 if you haven't. So we're talking about Thomas Ruffin Gray. His father, Captain Thomas Gray, died during the trials. His son was the one who was in financial ruin and was able to secure an interview with Nat Turner, and this was seen as a salvation. It could get him out of financial ruin. Nat's actual lawyer was William C. Parker, and you know, he only let's see, he on, it said after an hour and a half of questioning by magistrates. Let's see, and William C. Parker was among the magistrates. He was locked in chains behind bars where he was to spend his last days. And so he didn't. He probably spent more time with Thomas Gray than he did with his actual lawyer. So that might be why there's a discrepancy there. But William C. Parker was his actual lawyer. And the night before Thomas Gray interviewed him, Nat had already given a long explanation to other people. He given a lengthy confession, and even though he pled not guilty because he didn't feel guilty because he felt led by God, he still gave an explanation for why he did what he did. And Thomas Gray, in order to make this a sensationalized, fleshed out portrait of Nat Turner, of course, did some research on his own. Like I said, his financial well-being rested on this interview. So, of course, he was going to also do some outside research. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he wanted to get a clear portrait of who Nat Turner was to quail the fear of the whites who still owned slaves or who wanted to enter into the mind of the slaves to make sure that they knew what they were thinking at all times, and so that they could so they wouldn't be taken off guard, by revolt ever again. So, readers of the American Beacon had learned on November the 2nd of 1831 that the captive had great intelligence and shrewdness of intellect, and this is from the informants who were there while Nat was giving his, confession the night before Gray formally interviewed him. And he answered every question clearly and distinctly and without confusion. So this is showing a singularity of purpose. And this is all from, his revelations, his interactions with the Holy Spirit. Said, and they also said that the operations of his mind for many years past, he had signs. The spirits he conversed with were talked about. He prayed, he fasted, and this is all from the informants who talked with him before he even was interviewed. And he said he had supernatural powers and gifts, and he could cure diseases and control the weather. So he had already talked to other people. So Thomas Gray isn't the only person that Nat Turner talked to. So he's not, some lone person who decided to make up a story about Nat Turner. No, there are other people who Nat Turner spoke to, and there are other people who were there to witness Nat Turner's confession even before Thomas Gray officially interviewed him. So he had a series of encounters with a spirit, which, the Holy Spirit, and the Spirit gave him like a great purpose. And let's see. So the next day, when Thomas Gray actually interviewed Nat, he started out not convinced. So he started out saying that Nat was a gloomy fanatic with a dark, bewildered, and overwrought mind, endeavoring to grapple with things beyond its reach. So he had a very low opinion of Nat Turner. But by the end of the interview, this is important, Gray concluded his concluding impressions describe in moving terms a subject with a mind capable of attaining anything. So during the 3 days of interviewing, Thomas Gray, white man, became convinced that Nat Turner, a slave, had a mind capable of attaining anything. And it says the portrait betrayed a kind of chilling admiration for Nat Turner. So it's important to realize that Thomas Gray, during the course of the interview, became convinced of Nat Turner's mission. And in Thomas Gray's final words, he mentioned Paul, the apostle. So, this is jumping forward to Thomas Gray's actual death. So, not only was he convinced of Nat Turner's mission and also of his faith, but on his deathbed, Thomas Gray mentions Paul the apostle. So he died a Christian, a believer, and he obviously believed in the faithfulness of Nat Turner. And we'll continue with a part 3